I'll bring in former U.S. Air Force Assistant Vice Chief of Staff, retired Lieutenant General Richard Newton. He is also NewsNation's senior national security contributor. Lieutenant General, always good to have you, especially today. I mean, what a weekend, what a Friday. Trump posted we should be spending less time worrying about Putin. Zelenskyy has posted messages of gratitude, videos of gratitude, but still calling for security guarantees. What in the world comes next after this fallout, you think?
Well, good morning, Markie. Tom just used the perfect word, uncertain, especially on that foray that we saw on Friday in the Oval Office. I think there's three issues here that really are going to be, as we move forward, that certainly from the United States perspective. One is President Zelenskyy ready to come to the table or to at least discuss a ceasefire. Secondly, the really main sticking point that President Zelenskyy underscored in the Oval Office were security guarantees. Will that be up for discussion in the ensuing days and so forth? And what do those security guarantees mean? We can perhaps get into that. And the third, will the United States continue? To date, Markie, and you and I have talked about this endlessly on Monday mornings, especially, $70 billion to date of U.S. military support to Ukraine. Will that continue, and how will it continue, and so forth? But lots to unpack here. Key word is uncertain moving forward.
Yeah, do you see U.S. aid continuing after that moment? I mean, all three of them, and by three I mean Vice President J.D. Vance as well. I mean, they seemed fed up with one another on Friday. How do you see our support continuing or not continuing from here on out?
I think we will continue. I think we're going to continue with key military support that we've provided from the Biden administration, even early on in the Trump administration. I've had no indications, my sources haven't again, underscored any thought at all about stopping military support for the time being into Ukraine. But the next steps really, and what Secretary Rubio was on air over the weekend, especially on his piece yesterday with ABC News, the most critical element of any negotiations moving forward is actually getting Russia to the table. That's what the Trump administration is focused on. And then you can get into such things as the security guarantees and what follows on. But right now, my crystal ball says we'll continue with military support, but it's going to get rocky. It's going to get bumpy as we move forward, not only the next several days, but next several weeks, Markie.
Yeah, it's already turbulent right now. Hey, you brought up Marco Rubio being on the interview circuit this weekend. Let me play a bit of sound of that just for our audience at home who may have missed that over the weekend.
The only way it ends is if Vladimir Putin comes to a negotiating table. And right now, President Trump is the only person on earth who has any chance whatsoever of bringing him to a table to see what it is he would be willing to end the war on.
Lieutenant General, the other thing I find fascinating is that a Kremlin spokesman touting what it sees as a U.S. foreign policy shift that, quote, largely coincides with our vision. Who's right here? Who do we listen to? Is it Rubio or the Kremlin?
First and foremost, we start with the president, because Secretary Rubio is really just also underscoring President Trump's position on this. And frankly, I thought Secretary Rubio did a remarkable job underscoring the U.S. position. The bottom line is to get Russia to a negotiating table and then bring in Ukraine and so forth. But that's what's critical here from the Trump administration. To back up a little bit, what we saw in the Oval Office was, I hadn't seen that in all my 45 years plus of dealing with foreign policy and U.S. national security. That should have all been done in the back room, because that type of discussion does take place, but not in the public square, certainly in the Oval Office.
Do you think it was a bad look for all three of them? Sorry to interrupt, but do you think it was a bad look for all three? Because depending on who you talk to, who you listen to, so many people, you know, calling out President Trump, J.D. Vance, a lot of other people calling out Zelenskyy for coming in with an unforced error and kind of provoking it. But was it a bad look for all three of them, sir, or how did you read that situation?
I read it as a bad look for President Trump. I read it as a bad look for President Zelenskyy. You mentioned Vice President J.D. Vance. But again, that's what I want to underscore, though. What is important right now is kind of, as best we possibly can, is leave that behind us and look forward to. However, the good look that came out of this was, frankly, President Putin in Russia. That's very concerning to me, because he cannot be trusted. And the fact is, however, President Trump appropriately, I think, and effectively is trying to get Putin to the negotiating table. That's key. And that's what Secretary Rubio tried to underscore moving forward. But that's a tall order as well. But there's lots to unpack here, as we mentioned, especially now we've got President Trump at the State of the Union on Tuesday. I'm really going to be listening sharply in terms of what his vision is.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. Also, don't forget to click that red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.